Good afternoon. I'm Janet Johnson with EdStar Analytics, and I work with school districts all over North Carolina to help them with their data and federal grants and various things. And I'm going to talk about the access to advanced math. And I've helped a lot of schools over the past several decades identify kids who are prepared for advanced math, but yet they're not in there. And people have asked the question, well, why does that matter? What's the difference between advanced math and standard math? Wouldn't it even do kids some good to wait an extra year and get a better foundation and then take algebra in 9th grade instead of 8th? And I had not realized until then that the non-math educators don't always know the difference between the two math tracks. So I want to make sure that that's clear. And traditionally, in the standard math, the course is taught differently than it is in the advanced track. Even though Algebra 1 or Math 1, it's the same name, it's the same course number, it looks the same on the transcript, but it's an entirely different course if you take it in 8th grade compared to if you take it in 9th grade. And you may have seen in that video, you may have noticed that I said we looked at statewide data several years ago, and looking at the kids who score at the highest level on their EOGs, who go into 8th grade algebra instead of 9th grade algebra, comparing those two, the kids who took 8th grade algebra were 55 times more likely to take math or physics in high school than comparable kids, same scores, who waited till 9th grade to take algebra, because they're prepared differently. We also have found that kids who take algebra in 9th grade, even if they get straight A's, they don't go to the honors track because you took a different course. And it's the same topics that are covered, but in standard math, traditionally we teach rote learning. We teach how to compute. And we use mnemonics like FOIL and PEMDAS and crisscross applesauce, flip the fractions upside down before you multiply them. And kids memorize this stuff, and it's all standalone topics. Whereas in the advanced math, the concepts build on each other, and that's how they're taught. And the kids don't use mnemonics, they use the conceptual understanding of the material, and that prepares them to go on and take courses where you need a conceptual understanding of math to pass. Well, one of the things that we are finding, we're working with school districts right now and looking at a lot of ACT data, and we're looking at college readiness because we evaluate the Gear Up grants, which is a college readiness grant. And we're finding that we're not preparing the kids in the standard track for non-STEM careers. And we're 20 years into the 21st century. You know, we're still talking in education about we need to begin to prepare kids for 21st century careers. Well, we're 20 years in, and we haven't yet begun to prepare kids for 21st century careers. And the ACT puts out a benchmark that to be college ready for a non-STEM career, kids need to score 22 on the math portion of ACT. And to score a 22, you need a really good conceptual understanding of arithmetic and beginning algebra concepts. That's all it takes to score a 22. And I just picked up one of the facts and figure books up there. 31% of our kids score a 22. You know, that's less than a third. So the other 2/3 are not prepared for non-STEM careers. And we're seeing this in our graduation rates at the community colleges. And what's holding the kids back, they can't get through the basic gateway math. So that's why it's important to give kids access to advanced math. Now, there's two reasons. The kids who want non-STEM careers, we need to do a better job at teaching them the arithmetic and algebra concepts, but also using data to identify kids who are already ready for the advanced math, puts them in the STEM pipeline. And we're missing a lot of kids, at least we have been before this legislation. We've looked at data, of course we were looking at EVOS data instead of the EOGs as we've helped schools to close their achievement gaps. And we ran actually SAS ran the analyses, but we were working with them several years ago. And we looked at just 8th grade because that was the gate into advanced math. And we were missing 32,000 8th graders in North Carolina who were predicted by EVOS to be successful in advanced math, but they were in standard math. So this is a big problem, but we may have easy solutions at our fingertips. So what do we need in order to have high expectations? You know, Brenda asked me to talk about high expectations, and I thought, you can have all the high expectations in the world, but unless you're giving the kids the right curriculum, it doesn't matter. You know, they're not, your high expectations being conveyed will not make them understand math concepts by osmosis. You have to actually teach them the concepts. And what I believe we need to do, based on everything I'm seeing and the work that I'm doing, we need to teach the standard kids algebra concepts and arithmetic concepts, the way we teach the advanced kids. And I see that these students are referred to as the weak students. I see that in writing, that the students who can't pass the gateway math, they don't score 22, they're referred to as weak students. And I think of all the kids I've known who are brilliant kids, they were not in the advanced math track. And there's no reason that they can't learn arithmetic concepts. So I think one of the things we need to do is quit thinking of these kids as weak students and change the way that what we require for them, or change the curriculum of what they take in high school. And then also increase the number of kids in advanced math. Because we need both the non-STEM and the STEM pipeline. We need kids in both those pipelines. And one of the results, if we were to change how we teach the standard math, you could transition into advanced math at any time if you had a good foundation of arithmetic concepts and beginning algebra. But right now, because we only do that in 8th grade, that's the only gate in. And it's actually it has been a well-guarded gate in the past. But if we change the way we taught some of the standard math classes, there's no reason you couldn't go into the advanced math track as a 10th grader. You just can't now because you had to have what we teach in 8th grade, and if you didn't get it there, there's no place else to get it. So what headline would I like to see in the future? I would like to see that we finally realize that we create math talent rather than identify kids who are naturally born talented, because that's what we're doing. We create the talent by giving the kids access to the advanced courses initially. And what it would take to actually make this happen, we need to change some of the ways that we think now. We've thought that, we kind of have traditionally thought that there's such a thing as math naturals, you know, people who can naturally do math. And I think the origins of that are when we were trying to beat the Russians to the moon, and they told the school counselors, try to find some rocket boys that you can put in advanced math, and we'll put all our efforts on them and try to teach them math. But anybody can learn math. I've been a math teacher. I've taught in middle school, elementary school, and universities. And I would say only maybe 5% of people can't learn it. There have been a few, but most people can learn math. It's not like you have to be born with the gene to learn it, but we need to stop thinking that way. And we also need to start teaching all the kids the basic arithmetic and algebra concepts. Not everybody needs a STEM career, but you've got to have good quantitative reasoning skills for most of the jobs today, and we're not giving that to kids. And what are the barriers to this way of thinking? Or the barriers to doing this are the way that we think. Our culture, we have a lot of cultural roadblocks to changing access to advanced math. And then we also need to look at our curriculum. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. That tiramisu was yummy, wasn't it? Thank you to SAS and RTI and everybody. I feel spoiled today. I am Sneha Shah Coltrane from the Department of Public Instruction, in case I don't know you, but I know quite a few of you in here. So it is just so good to see some of you I haven't seen in a while. If you don't mind, I didn't bring slides. You should have a handout, though, because I wanted to be flexible enough in the 5 minutes to be able to meet your needs. I wanted to share with you a little bit about a new policy that we're so grateful to our General Assembly to help us move the needle a little bit further. And so we had, over the last 2 years, been very fortunate to get a legislation passed to help increase access to advanced math courses. This legislation has really strengthened our pathway to truly ensuring we're not overlooking students who already have that capability, and that for some reason we're not seeing that. So we're super excited for that, and we've been working really hard with that initiative across the state. And so the idea is that if you have a student that we haven't tapped before, but that still was able to perform at a high level on one of our standardized assessments, state standardized assessments, that is an immediate catch, an immediate aha, an immediate, oh my goodness, we need to make sure this child is then given the opportunity to be in the next advanced math course, or they were very wise to revise the legislation, or if not a course, especially in elementary schools, we don't actually have courses, an advanced learning opportunity aligned to the AIG plan. This is work that has been going on in the state for a very long time. But but on the bottom of my document, you'll see a stool, a three-legged stool. Because sometimes we need a policy, and we so appreciate that. And because sometimes another leg of the stool creates a challenge, right? And so in this case, there were maybe some practices or some mindsets that created that barrier. So the key is to have mindsets, policies, and practices come together. Sometimes one is going to lead the way. And in this situation, that policy we've been trying for years. And we're not talking about thousands of kids. One district, the other day, there were 2 children. Another district, there were 12. Another district, there were 100. So we're not talking great masses of students. But we all know, even if it's one student, that's a student we must catch because their potential had been untapped. There are still many students we need to develop their talent. There's still many that we need to prepare, absolutely. But we also have a group of students who have this talent that, oh my gosh, sorry, this light is very bright. I'm not used to light. That we have this potential and have shown us this incredible success, this achievement without intentional intervention. To me, that child is all of a sudden even more in need of something than the students who have been cultivated already. So what this legislation has been allowed to do is to really strengthen that policy. We had board policy, we had this, I've been doing training on it forever, that there could be one indicator on this, but now it's pretty clear. Not an option, and we really appreciate that. Then our job is to continue to work on practices and mindsets, because the only way to make sustainable change and systematic change is when all three work together. Absolutely, that legislation is going to move us forward and help us get over that hump that we've been working on, and that's critical. Then we need the mindset shift and the practice shift. Because where we're seeing, we get some of the questions, oh, but that kid may not, they may not have this. How can they go forward? Well, as educators, we know we can provide interventions. In one district, there were 12 students. There were 12 students, and we're working with districts to really look at patterns and trends. So we say, okay, these 12, now let's get them in. Let's get them the interventions they need to be successful in the next course because they had not been on an accelerated pathway before. So now we need to make sure they have, because we don't skip in education. People always say, oh, they skip. We don't skip in gifted ed. We don't skip content. We don't skip. We accelerate. That means that you go through it faster and a deeper pace, right? At a deeper level. We don't skip, we accelerate. So we have these students who were not on the accelerated path, so we need to give them what they need. But this one district had 12, and I said, well, can you also be looking at the demographics to see what patterns do you see? Turned out half of the 12, a little bit more than, I think there were 8 of the 12, whatever percentage that is, and of English language background. And so all of a sudden, what that showed the district was, okay, we need to really work more closely with our English language department, right? And really look at that. And then that helped prompt some mindset shifts. Because then we had those teachers say, are you sure? Are you sure? Yes, yes. And so that AIG coordinator was like, absolutely, let's give them support. Let's work with them. The math teachers gave them more math intervention, and they were incredibly successful over the year. So the key here is that how do we, in looking at all of the great innovative practices today, and we can hear, you're going to hear from Burton in a moment. We heard from all sorts across the state, because North Carolina, like Mike said, is on the cutting edge. The key is, how do we work together to really change the policies, the practices, and the mindsets to truly innovate in a systemic and sustainable way? And that is why I thank SAS, I thank RTI, I thank Best NC, everybody for bringing us together in this way to continue to think about that. Because these pockets exist in North Carolina, and we're so grateful for them. And now we need to really look at how to really expand those so we can ensure every child's fully developed. And now I think Burton's coming.